Okay, good morning, everybody. And we continuing with the Sharks board electronic barrier story. As you can see, it's nice and sunny here in Sweden at the moment, and yeah, it's one of those perfect summers where it's 25, 30 degrees every single day. So I'm enjoying it during this whole corona lockdown nonsense going around the world. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that now. So we landed on the island and we survived with all the boats survived. We managed to get all the equipment. Fortunately, all the equipment that got washed off my boat was all sealed in sealed cases, sealed boxes, and we retrieved everything. In those days, I used to wear spectacles, and those were the only things that disappeared. But Jeremy Cliff, the chief scientist at the Sharks board, he is also a underwater hockey player and stuff. He just put on a mask and he dived into the water, and next thing he came up with my glasses. So that's my spectacles, which was a fantastic thing to have. Excuse me. Anyway, I just want to set it up. So now we were going to do the electronic barrier testing at Dyer Island. Now I've drawn an extremely good drawing of what it looked like. Very, very professional, I must say. But have a look here. Okay, so let's get this right. So there, now I'm guessing that Shark Alley is spelled back to front for you guys. But if I look at it like this, it's spelled perfectly. But just to give you an idea, imagine this is Dyer Island. Now, yeah, everything's opposite now, so it would all be the other way around. But here's Dyer Island, and there's the jetty, and that's where I almost flipped the boat over, and there's the research station, or the old Guana station, and here's Shark Alley. Sorry that it's spelled back to front. And then what we would do, we'd have three boats. So that boat there would be the Sharks board boat, and it would have the electronic barrier running from that boat with floats all the way to the seal colony. And then that boat there would be my boat, our boat, the research unit's boat, and we would just chum the entire day, no matter what. From the time we dropped anchor, we chum and chum and chum, and we were out there from 5, 6 in the morning until 6, 7 in the evening every single day for weeks and weeks and weeks. That's how you do research, and it's hard work. So we would just chum the entire day, and then that boat there was the inflatable boat that the NSB also had, and that boat was there for just to observe what was going on further down the electronic barrier, the cable. So we went out every single day, and we chummed and chummed and chummed. So the protocol was to start chumming. All right, so lay the cable out. It didn't take long. We had it all set up. So drop the cable, attach it to the island, drop it with floats, and it had a couple of anchors on it. And then start the generator up. No, didn't start the generator up. I just started chumming. And we would chum for 2 hours on our boat. And we get shark activity around the boat. And then they'd switch the generator on, and the barrier would light up and would start working. And it worked, because we'd see sharks over there and we'd see sharks over there, but they wouldn't come to the baits. For 2 hours, while that barrier was on, the sharks would not come to the baits. The first few days, and also when new sharks came in, they would readily come up to the boat, and they'd be feeding around the boat and taking baits, and then the barrier would go on for 2 hours, and then they'd duck. But sharks that were remaining in the area for a few days or a week or whatever, they quickly learned that they mustn't go near the barrier. And even when we switched the barrier off, animals that had been exposed to the barrier several times, a number of times, they eventually wouldn't come near the boat, even when the barrier was off. So they quickly learned that this barrier was something foreign and something that was not good for them. And the electronic pulses it was sending out. So it worked. The barrier worked in that test environment. The problem is how do you get the barrier to work in a beach environment where you got breaking waves and you don't have 150 meters to cover, but you might have kilometers of coastline to cover. So anyway, that was the first time the electronic barrier was tested, and it really worked. It really worked well, and eventually, like I say, you could switch it off, and the sharks would still not approach the boat. The same as these electric fences, cables, or tapes they put around corrals for horses, or they put it around sheep pens, or if somebody doesn't want their dogs to run into the flower patch, then they'll put up this little barrier around it, and it goes tick, 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 and the dog puts a snout on it and gets a shock, or the horse touches the tape and it gets a fright. And you only have to leave it on for a couple of days, and the dog or the horse or the sheep touch it several times, they get a shock, and then you can switch it off because they just won't approach it anymore. And that's how it works. They learn that it's going to give them a shock on the snout or wherever they touch it. And the same happens with the great white sharks. But the problem is the sharks are not in a corral. So they're not in an enclosed area. So you couldn't put the barrier up on a beach and leave it there for a week until the sharks realize that it's dangerous, because they're moving in and out. They're not staying in that beach area. And when the barrier is off, a shark could actually swim between the beach and the barrier, and then you switch it on again, and then the shark is caught in the bathing zone where you don't want it to be. So there's a lot of challenges and problems when it comes to working with this barrier. How many minutes has this got? Yeah, okay, so I'm going to keep this video short. That's just to set it up, and I showed you how we set the project up, and it worked. The barrier actually worked. And in the next video, I'm going to tell you quite a crazy story about Paul van Blurk, one of the Sharksport guys, and you're going to learn a little bit about the great white shark as well in the next video. So stick around.